Okay guys, today we're going to be going through a little InDesign demo, some things that we're going to cover. I'm going to do it in 3 parts. So part 1 is going to be your basic columns, gutters, and baseline grids. Part 2 is going to be your paragraph styles and character style palette within InDesign. And part 3 is what you're going to need for next class and how I expect your guys' files to be set up for the remainder of exercise 1. So we're going to start out here with a new InDesign file. I'm just going to label this demo. Make sure you change your units into inches, and we're just going to work within that very first aspect ratio for exercise 1, which is 7:7. And actually most of the preset details, you actually can set up your columns and margins right here, but we're going to actually just leave the margins all at a 1/2 inch, and then we'll actually go into our InDesign document and talk about columns a little bit more, and then you'll know where to find it as well. So starting out here, and some of you guys, your screens might look like this when you're first opening InDesign, or at least haven't opened it in a while. So to kind of get all the options that I have here on the side and the icons here on the left, you're just going to go to Window, Workspace, and you're going to hit Typography, and that's going to automatically give you a lot of the settings that I'm going to talk about here today. So the first thing we want to make sure is this little tool that we have over here, and for Mac users I believe this is a pretty standard view options. So we have a few different things going on here. So we have your frame edges, rulers, guides, smart guides, and baseline grids. So we want to make sure our rulers are on, so you can see it top and the bottom, make sure our sizes are correct, and if for some reason you don't have this view options icon, you could always go up to view and show rulers, or Command R for Mac, and I believe it is Control R for PC users. And I'll send you guys out a keyboard shortcut list that kind of outlines the differences between Mac and PC keyboard shortcuts. So if I do say a Mac shortcut, and for all the PC users, if you don't know what the keyboard shortcut is, you could kind of refer to the list, so you guys could still follow along to the video today. So the first thing that we're going to talk about in part 1 is going to be your columns setup. So just for the sake of this video, we're just going to go up to a layout, and it's under margins and columns. So within these settings you can see a couple things here, and always make sure your preview box is on so you know what you're doing while you're editing it. So actually you can adjust your margins here, so always make sure this link is clicked, so if you adjust something it will adjust it equal distant all the way around, but we're just going to keep that at 1/2 inch. Then the next important thing is your column setting here. So this is what we were talking about in class when I demoed on the first day, the difference between different grid styles. So you have your single column grid, which basically is just using the margins. Then you have your double column, and then your multi-column starting at 3, and then you can add more. And then we have your gutter size, so this basically adjusts the space in between columns or grids, and usually I like to keep that about this 0.1875 is usually pretty comfortable, or you could keep it at 0.125, either or, depending on how you guys look at it. So that's kind of the introduction to columns, and there are a few different ways you can do this, especially from this options menu, but for the sake of being a universal tool where you could find that, it'll always be in layout and then margins and columns. So the next thing we're going to adjust is going to be our baseline grids. So pretty much what that is in context to. So if we get a line of text here, and I'm just going to fill it with placeholder text for now. So within baseline grids, you're actually going to go to your InDesign preferences, and you're going to hit grids. Or for Mac users, it's going to be Command K. And it's going to be right here. So if you actually hit Command K, it will take you to General Preferences. So you're just going to go down here to Grids. So then this first section will pretty much outline your baseline grids for your entire document. So the first thing we want to change is your view threshold. So this pretty much just means like at what point you zoom in using your scroll wheel that you could actually see the baseline grids. And I always like to see them when I'm doing things, so I either put it at 50 or 25. So then once I hit this, then you guys will be able to see that. Actually, they're probably turned off. There we go. So if you kind of ran into a similar problem, just make sure you hit View, Grids and Guides, and make sure so when they were missing, make sure you hit Show Baseline Grids, then you'll be able to see them. So you'll pretty much get these lines going all the way across the page, and your text kind of not really doing anything to it. Right now it's not really hurting or helping your composition. They're kind of just these floating horizontal lines, but we do want to kind of anchor your text or change the baseline grids based on the type of text you're going to have in your document or spread or overall layout. So pretty much what we're going to do is, let's say we are wanting to make this a single column grid, or column. We're just going to start that there. And to kind of toggle this view, you're actually just going to hit W on your keyboard. That way it'll kind of show you everything a little bit cleaner without all kind of like the distractions of your grids and everything. So what we're going to do is I'm actually just going to start this text, and most likely for exercise 1 we're going to be working with font sizes between probably 8 and 10 depending on what font and type family you guys choose. And as you can see, if we scroll in here, really the text is not aligning to any of the baseline grids or the horizontal lines. So to pretty much change that, we have to do a few things first. So if we go into our paragraph styles, so our paragraph panel here, and there are these two little options at the bottom of that panel. So this one is to not align to baseline grid, but we want to check align to baseline grid. So as you can see in the text, how it automatically snaps to the lines that we set going horizontally. So that's what we definitely want. And let's say for some reason we want to make this text a little bit bigger, for say, let's say 11, and you notice that it like jumped and added a crazy amount of leading for no reason. But that's actually because of the way baseline grids are set up. So when you snap baseline grids to the document, it actually goes in increments of your leading. So pretty much what that means is, if we go back up to our grids preferences here, so the increment is every 12 points. So until you increase the point size to an increment of 12, that's when it'll change. So that's why it looks kind of funny and why it added so much extra space. So based on our point size, you're actually going to want to probably cut that in half. And my kind of rule of thumb is, let's say you're working with 8-point text, you're just going to want to subtract 2 for your increment entry in your preference settings. Plus or minus 2, I always say, between there. But really that's personal preference. That's just what I like to use. And it's a really good place for you guys to start, especially while you're learning the software and learning how to use baseline grids. And then when you get comfortable, you could kind of set your own parameters for that. So the key differences here, you could see it added pretty much double the amount of lines. Oops. And that is because we doubled the increment. We put it to 6 instead of 12. So now if we go to highlight this text and snap it, now we could adjust our leading and it goes within those increments. Same with the sizes. Because that is really the point of baseline grids, is to ensure that your point size to leading ratio, so it's these two numbers up here, or if you go in your character palette, it's these two across from each other. Remember our leading settings and our point settings, it's to make sure that ratio makes sense and that it's readable. And depending on what point size you're working with, like I said, that plus or minus 2 it really just depends on that initial point size that you're working with. So if we do want to adjust this to, let's say, 10, we're most likely going to want to go back in our InDesign preferences and change the baseline to around 8 to kind of give it that extra incremental cushion. So now we see it snaps, and even if you try to move it, it will actually just snap it to the next available line. Okay, so once we have our baseline grid set up, I'm comfortable with the way that looks. There's plenty of spacing in between each line. The leading is comfortable for this point size for 10 points. That way we could see everything in that view. The next thing we're going to go over is our character and paragraph styles, and I kind of already was working on them a little bit, especially when we turned the baseline snaps on in the paragraph styles. So pretty much what the key differences are here. So actually paragraph and paragraph styles are two separate panels, but they kind of go together. Same with character and character styles. So what paragraph it will do is pretty self-explanatory. It controls the indentation and kind of overall language or control of the whole entire paragraph. So things like your indentation, if you want to have space before or space after, which pretty much just means like sometimes in like books you have like a really, really large first letter in capitals that's like a whole corner, then it kind of goes into the rest of the paragraph, which is actually like this setting right here, the drop caps on the number lines. Then you could also control the hyphenation, which will be really important, especially in this project, because we want to avoid as many hyphenations as possible. So as you could see, this Latin word is hyphenated, and we want to actually turn that off. So pretty much the character palette controls the overall paragraph style, right? It controls the overall paragraph as a whole. And then the character palette controls the font and the typeface within itself. So these are areas where you could adjust point size, your leading, your tracking. You actually do not want to use really any of these 4 settings on the bottom. The vertical scale, horizontal scale, and the skew, because those actually you can kind of see, edit like the actual typeface and is stretching the typeface, and then it just looks kind of wrong. So we actually really don't want to touch any of those settings, so we'll keep these pretty much at 100 all the time. And if you ever find yourself wanting to stretch, let's say for example, if you ever find yourself wanting to horizontally stretch a typeface, just pick another typeface that has that is a built-in characteristic, instead of doing it yourself. Because most of the time when you do horizontally adjust the scale, it is not doing the original typeface any justice. You're better off just finding another font or typeface that embodies more of that stretch or extension in width that you're looking for. So that is the character and paragraph palettes. And then you have your paragraph and character styles. So pretty much what this is your paragraph styles is probably one of the most essential things you could use if you have multiple pages of text. So for example, for exercise 1, you guys will have a total of 3 pages. So if we go up in your pages panel, we could actually just add 3 pages here, and actually we don't want it to resemble a book spread, so we're actually going to go file document setup, and we're going to turn facing pages off, so then it changes to 3 separate pages. So back to paragraph styles. Pretty much what this will do is set up a consistent design throughout each page. So if you're going in here and let's say I want to use this style, so 10-point font with 11-point leading, let's just make this red, why not? And I'll change the font. Let's see. I'll do Big Caslon. So, within your paragraph styles, what you can do is hit this little hamburger menu here, new paragraph style, and I want to use this as body copy, so if I label it body copy, let's say 1, and hit OK. So then if we go to create, so let's say I'm just randomly typing this in. If we go to create, actually I'll just use our placeholder text again. So let's say I'm starting out with this as my text, and let's say this is a, I don't know, pull quote over here to the side, for example, but I want it to be within this body copy style. So instead of highlighting this all over again, making this 10 points, making it red, adjusting my leading, all you have to do is in your paragraph styles, once you've set it up, literally just hit body copy, and then it will make it exactly the same. You adjust your margins and it's already done for you. So this comes in handy, especially when we get to, other pages. You're not having to go back and look and remind yourself that you're using 10-point font with 11-point leading. You could literally just hit body copy 1. And this works with other styles of text too. So let's just say this heading is called, or this whole paragraph is called intro to demo. And I want a random typeface here. Let's go Helena display. And I really want it kind of big. And let's make it blue. So let's say that is the heading style I want on every single page. So if I go down, let's just copy these, Command C, Command V. Let's just say I am starting this new page. Oh, and keep in mind too, whenever you set up your margins and columns, usually it's just for one single page. So you notice pages 2 and 3 don't have the columns on it. So pretty much what you all have to do, select the last two. Then we'll go back to 3 with the 1.667 gutter. And then you see that added it. Okay. So let's say I want to put this body copy here instead. Oops. I think that is a little off. Oh, I think I actually did have the gutter slightly different. Oops. There we go. There we go. So now you should be able to see it aligned. So let's say I want this to be called my new demo 2. So just like the body copy, you could go back to the original style, go into paragraph styles, hit new paragraph style, label this headline 1, and usually you kind of want to give it a little nickname, so I'll just put Helena Blue, hit OK, then go back to this and hit Helena Blue. So then you're not having to highlight this, get the right typeface, get the right size. You just have it set in your parameters already. You just click the content you want to make that size and you already have it done. Okay, so part 3, I'm just going to go over kind of the expectations of how I want your guys' specific files for exercise 1 to look like based off of the kind of run-through tutorials that I just walked through. So we're just going to go back to our InDesign. We're going to create a new file. Make sure we are just going to start with the 7x7, but you will have to do a 6x9 and 9x6 version of what I am going to do right now. So demo 2, and we're going to keep the margins at 1/2 inch. So we're back to this. So there's actually 2 ways you guys can set up your files for all 3 sizes. So the first way is to have it all in one document. So for one document, you just have one page that is a 7x7. Or what you can do is to have 3 pages with 3 different sizes. So I'm going to show you guys both. So we're going to go back to document setup, make sure you have facing pages off. Then we're just going to hit, oops, it's this little icon here. So you're actually going to hit edit page size, custom, and we'll just go, we'll just call it 6 by 9 and 9. So you'll have one size that is 7 by 7, one that is 6 by 9, and then we'll do the same for the last one, custom. We'll just call it 9 by 6. So this is your horizontal version. So we have your horizontal version, your portrait size, and your square all within one document. So you guys could have the choice of doing this, or you could create a new separate document for each size. I think it's easier to do it this way, and it kind of gets you guys' practice with adjusting the page sizes. So what I would like for you to do is, after coming to me with your one-on-ones and discussing your sketches and kind of fleshing out further ideas with me in class today, you're going to take one of your 10 sketches. So you're going to pick one of your favorite sketches from each size ratio and translate them onto InDesign. So we're not working with any text. We're still working with the rectangle tool here, and just practicing setting up columns and grids and baselines based on your favorite sketches rectangles. So what you can do is, of your favorite sketch that you picked or that we talked about in class, go take a picture of it with your phone, and you're pretty much going to take the screenshot and then just click and drag your screenshot directly. So this was kind of a test sketch that I did for the 7 by 7. So kind of try to crop your original sketch. And for terms of organizing, we're going to use our layers panel. So we're just going to call this, let's just do sketchbook fave 7 by 7. And try to make that follow along the rough margins as possible. It's okay if it's not totally perfect, since I said you guys don't exactly have to measure out your squares. But after you kind of adjust that, we're going to add a new layer, lock that one. We're just going to call this content 7 by 7. And it is pretty essential for you guys to use your layers panels and organize, especially if you have 3 documents or 3 pages within one document or one file. So make sure you do use the layers panel to kind of separate what content and what images go where, so it's really easy for you to pick up on and hide certain aspects. So what we're going to do is you're going to take one of your sketches here and you're going to build out your baseline grid structure and your column structure based on your sketch. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start out, make sure we go back to pages, make sure your 7 by 7 is selected. We're going to go back out to margins and columns, make sure your preview is on. So this was a 2-column grid, so we're going to select most likely 5, and we're going to make the gutter around there. So select a column number that as closely gets to your rectangles as possible, as well as the gutter as possible. So then what we're going to do is you're just going to take your rectangle tool, make sure you fill it in here, and then make sure we have our content layer selected. So then we're simply just going to recreate those rectangles. over our sketch. Let's actually make this transparent so we know what we're working with underneath for now. I'm just going to copy and paste that, align it up again with the baseline grid. So we have two body copy paragraphs, because that's what these represented in my test sketch. Then we're going to go back to the paragraph tool. This represented a heading for me in my sketches. So we're going to bring that, apply the same. We'll just put these at 50%. The heading also at 50% opacity. So then now you'll see this is the content that we're working with. And these kind of boxes I added, let's say for the table of contents, this could potentially be where you put information about a date, a time, a person's name, things like that. So actually go back to your rectangle tool, and we're going to use this line. And you'll notice instead of just like copying and pasting, you'll see when you paste it, sometimes it just literally pastes it anywhere. So instead, if you hover over your box and you toggle with your keyboard Option, it will turn into this kind of double cursor, and that is going to copy your content. So what we want to do, since we want to keep this column in mind, you're going to hit your Option and actually hold down Shift all at the same time, and then drag it down. So you see it's keeping in line even if I move my mouse. It's keeping in line with that column. I'm going to do that again. And you can actually see in green these two little arrows that show up kind of on the sides. That's just letting you know that they're equal distant to each other, which I really like that, so we're going to keep it. And then this also represents maybe a pull quote area or additional text that we could pull to. So we're going to take that, drop that down to 50% as well. Toggle your original sketch so you could see what we're working with. And then from here out, we're going to adjust the baseline grids. So preferences, grids, baseline. So I'm actually going to go from the margin, and I'm going to put that back. I'm going to try 5 this time because these body copy paragraphs are pretty small. And then change that to 25. And then make sure we toggle the baseline grid on, or you could also do view, guides and grids, and it'll be right here. So as you could see, we set up the baseline grid based on our content, based on our sketch, this original sketch, and that is version number 1. And we're going to do the exact same thing with our portrait and landscape. So we're going to hide our baseline grids for now. Go to this. We are going to add our screenshot of our favorite sketch for our 6x9. And like I said, this is all going to be stuff that we're going to talk about in our one-on-ones, which sketches are working the best, which ones might need some improvement, that kind of thing. So roughly try to align your own margins with the margins on the document. And we're actually going to create a new set of layers for this. So we're just going to copy over, because it's right now I pasted the image on this red layer for content 7x7. I'm actually just going to hit Command C and then paste it in our green layer. Readjust that. We're going to lock our 7x7. So this is going to be our sketchbook fave from 6x9, and then content 6x9. So in that way we have a clear system of content that goes on this side and a clear system of content that goes on this side. So again, we're going to lock the sketchbook image, and then we're going to go to our content. Select your rectangle tool and start your margins and columns practice. So this one's actually pretty skinny, so we're going to try 7 columns. So this is still considered a single column grid structure. But a single column grid structure doesn't necessarily mean you only use one column. You basically are going off of the size of rectangle that you use, or the size of body copy that you used for your sketch. So when you're translating a sketch into InDesign, you're going to use the characteristics of your sketch to determine your columns. But if you're starting with InDesign, you're going to set your columns first, like we did in the demo, then adjust your type size from there. So it really depends on what type of material you're starting with, or what thing you're starting with, because then that will determine your column structure. And as you see, this does not change the column structure. I'll hide these, I'll hide everything. So as you see, this does not change the column structure on our 7x7. So if we go back to our content 6x9, grab our rectangle tool, make our original single sketch here. And actually, I kind of want to align it to the inside of that. Then we're going to I'm just going to drag this over here. Take this one. Oops. And this content, so like this would represent your body copy, and this is a potential pull quote or subhead, and this could be a potential extra date or time within your spread. This information over here could be that additional pull quote. And we're also adding a different body copy width too. So we're just going to align that here. And actually with these, we're going to want to use your gutters to your advantage here. So I'm using the inside of this gutter again. This is going to be another body copy paragraph under here. I'm going to adjust that. And then we're also going to bring down these to align with that information. And I might want to adjust this, make that a little smaller. Maybe this will be a skinnier subhead and a skinnier line or pull quote or date that we want to highlight here. So then you could just toggle off your sketchbook content or your sketchbook screenshot for that. then you'll see, we'll go ahead and set that to 50% opacity. Then that could be your number 2. So we have our number 1, number 2, and then we'll go ahead and create number 3. So bring in again your favorite sketch from now your landscape size, or your 9x6. So we're just going to crop this. And again, we're going to make 2 more layers. Sketchbook 9x6 fave, and then content 9x6. I'm going to lock everything else, copy or paste that over. We're going to make that bigger, and like I said, roughly try to align your sketch content within your margins on the page. So we're going to lock that, create our margins and columns. So I'm going to try a larger one this time. So we're actually going to start off with 12 columns. And the benefit of having more columns is you will have more available space to have more alignments, because we do have a couple. So this spread represents most likely more content. You could fit more content going in this orientation, or at least in this sketch that I have here. So honestly, the more columns you have, the more available alignments you can make within your piece as well. So then we'll go to our back to our rectangle tool here, and I'm going to start on that line. So this is going to be our main body copy. Then this will most likely be where my headline sits. And just to make sure that these are aligned, I'm just going to move it over just a little bit. And then these will also represent body copy. So let's make that the edge of the column to the outside. Edge of the column to the next outside. So you're really using those guides or those lines to guide you for those alignments, especially kind of within this moment here. Make sure those are aligned. Then I had a pull quote right here. We're just gonna extend that a little bit. Not the biggest fan of that spacing, so we're gonna adjust it. And I think we're actually going to utilize these columns here. There we go. Then I'll bring that to that line. Perfect. So then we all have the same width. And then I have these out here. So these could potentially represent page numbers, or some sort of marking of like the title of the page or things like that. So we're going to head, and while using, and actually, so another benefit of your rulers that you have here is you can actually bring down guides. So if we bring these guides down to kind of align our boxes and map out our space as well, is another way you could organize yourself. and really utilize those alignments. And it can be a little bit hard to see, so I'll just toggle our sketch off here real quick, just so you guys could see that. And we're going to go back to our rectangle tool here and create, oops, and again holding shift and option to make these copying, pasting keyboard shortcuts a lot easier. So then, as you could see, if we toggle off our sketch, kind of the content that we have here. So we have our heading, body copy, other body copy, pull quote, potentially a page number, and maybe another page number or icon. And then we're just going to make this 50% opacity. And there you go. I'll toggle these off. So what you're going to need for next class is you're going to pick your 3 favorite sketches and translate them. After you meet with me, translate them into this type of order. And kind of the reason why we're doing this is because it might kind of seem a little arbitrary just working with rectangles and just random shapes on a page. And you might kind of think like, what's kind of the point of all of this? But in reality, we are simply just practicing the different ways you can rearrange text and content and typography, but before it gets too bogged down with the language in itself. So, you know, and nuances of the language. So things like your kerning and your leading and things like that, which is still all very important to know. But as this kind of first step, kind of dipping your toe into this exercise, I want you guys to get used to identifying these boxes as content types, so then you could see before you make and fill these in with text that this layout might work out better because of the column width is the widest, so I could probably fit the most information. Oh, I really like the way this aligns here. It could give me potential for names or dates in the table of contents or things like that. I like, you know, this version because it definitely plays around with the different weight in columns, grid structure. It's extending the text box or extending the grid horizontally instead of vertically like these. And we're really trying to hone in on practicing the hierarchy without actually utilizing typography. And I think this is a really good stepping stone into when we will start with the provided copy for exercise 1 by doing these types of iterations first. So then, let's say out of these, this is my favorite in the 7x7. I could then easily take the table of contents information or other body copy information and fill it in this layout or in this style and try to see if that works. So for next class on Thursday, please bring your 3 versions of your favorite sketches. So you'll have one 7x7, one 9x6, and one 6x9, with scanning in your, I'll pull them up here, scanning or taking a picture of your best sketches from each size and really fleshing that out, getting used to the InDesign structure of columns and grids and baseline grids, and really testing the waters before you're too bogged down with the actual content and language of what the typography could be. And if you guys have any questions, come to me either after you guys finish up this video, after class, or if this brings you to the end of class, depending on when your one-on-one critique is with me, feel free to send me an email afterwards as well.